on the daily. But we will keep you, Rob, if you don't mind, because we are going to welcome in Dale Johnson as well, because we do want to talk about 2026 and VAR, of course, because we always love to talk about that. But just as we do get ready to bring him in, Rob, what are your thoughts on the expansion and making the World Cup 48 teams instead of 32?
Nervous, to be honest, and particularly because the format hasn't really been revealed yet. I think that, for all the problems that this World Cup has thrown up, I think the one thing that it did get right, or the format gets right, is the jeopardy at different stages. We talk about the quarterfinals and the semi-finals being this sort of these big matchups between two massive teams, but the last round of those group games were absolutely fantastic. You think about the drama of teams like Germany going out, Japan beating Spain, watching two games at the same time and not knowing really who's going to go out until sort of the last seconds of games. Really, FIFA need to be looking at and keeping that, because that is the essence of the World Cup. Obviously, we're all going to enjoy a grandstand finish on Sunday between Argentina and France, and that's what people are attracted to the World Cup by. But it's also that drama earlier in the tournament, and I think FIFA need to do everything possible to keep that. I think it's going to be difficult with 48 teams, but they need to do everything in their power to make sure that is maintained, because that really, for me, that was the most exciting round of games at this World Cup, and to lose that would be criminal, really.
Yeah, very quick on this. There's a lot of context that needs to be obviously discussed when we're talking about the increasing of teams, because on one hand, this is a good thing for nations and national teams from federations that really want to develop their own soccer, and they don't have obviously the infrastructure that the likes of, an England or a Germany or a France may have. I'm thinking specifically CONCACAF, of course, and even CONMEBOL to a certain point. And of course, when you go to Asia, etc., and Africa being the most key thing. So, but I do take Rob's point as well, because it's important to understand that competition needs to be that competition at the very highest, and the World Cup finals need to be that competition at its highest. So yes, 48 teams could mean a more open-ended discussion into what it means to welcome teams that really want to be a powerhouse in the world, but at the same time, we need to make sure that we maintain the level of high excellence in competition. So it has a lot of context and nuance, this conversation. It's not just one-ended.
Well, let's get a bit more information on it. Dale, what do we know so far about the plans? What can you tell us?
Yeah, so FIFA decided 6 years ago that it was going to be 16 groups of 3 teams. Now, the problem with this is that, firstly, you lose a lot of the jeopardy, as Rob mentioned, because you're getting to the top 2 going through. So 2/3 of the World Cup go through to the knockout rounds. But the other problem is that when you haven't got teams playing concurrently in their final group game, then you get a situation whereby teams can play out a specific results, say 1-0, and that results in those 2 teams playing that game to go through in first and second, and the team that isn't playing to go out of the tournament. Now, FIFA had proposed to get around this by having a penalty shootout around every drawn game. But then again, that still doesn't change the outcome where you're playing for 1-0. It still can be collusion. So I think FIFA have finally realised that this 3-team idea isn't really going to work. Now, one of the reasons why they went for the 3-team idea was they wanted to limit the increase in games from 64 to 80. And a lot of that was pressure from the clubs and from the players' associations who didn't want an extra workload. Now, on this system with 3 groups of 16, then they could still play the World Cup in around 32 days. Now, with the suggestion, and I think this is going to happen, I think they've realised they're going to have to do it, where they go to 4 groups of 12 and every team plays 3 games still, that's going to increase the World Cup to 104 matches. And that means that they're going to have to play over a longer period, at least 35 days. And obviously, this is going to be something that's going to put FIFA and the World Cup back on a collision course with European clubs about the amount of time it's going to take up in the summer. But I think that if you're going to have a 48-team tournament, you need to have the 12 groups of 4 teams, because it's just a better format. You are going to have third-place teams going through to create the right balance of teams going through to create the round of 32 to round of 16 onwards to the final. But it will just be better than it will be to having these singular games at the end, which could lead to collusion of results.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.